Wow, I can't believe we made it through a whole nother week and we're still here, still surviving. Welcome back to this week's episode of Closed by Mo. My name is Mohammed. I am hopefully your favorite YouTube host on most things real estate. I'm also a real estate investor and a realtor based out of New York, among other things. In this week's episode, we're going to jump a little bit into the top 5 mistakes that I see a lot of new landlords making. And I should know, I was a new landlord a couple of years ago and I've made these exact same mistakes. Before we go any further, guys, if you are enjoying this content or if you're following and really liking everything, I really appreciate it. Go ahead and maybe share this with someone or drop a like or a subscribe or even a dislike. Everything helps with the YouTube algorithm, but of course, if you are enjoying this, you can go ahead and scroll down below to see the blog post and my other social media posts as well, so you can follow me everywhere if you'd like to. Without further ado, guys, let's jump into the top 5 mistakes most new landlords make. Now, these mistakes are in no particular order, and God knows I've made these mistakes as well over the last couple of years. But to jump right into it, the first mistake I see a lot of new landlords making is assuming that the property or the units are always going to be rented. And what I mean by that is even if you're a seasoned investor or a new landlord that's buying a Class A building in one of the nicest areas of town, and it's a completely remodeled turnkey property, you shouldn't go into it with the assumption that all the units are going to be immediately rented or are always going to stay rented. And what I mean by that is you should factor about 5, if not 10%, or 5 to 10% of your operating expenses to go towards vacancy rates, because you might have tenants that break their lease early and the unit's now sitting empty for a month or a couple of months. You might have brokerage fees for helping you turn that unit around and get it rented again to someone else. So these are the fees that you should take into account, and don't just assume because the property is completely vacant or is being delivered completely vacant that you'll be able to get a tenant in there the very next day. You still have to go through tenant verification for income, employment, background checks, reference checks. These things take up time, but if you do them properly, you'll be able to better place a much suited tenant for the location that you're renting out in. The second mistake that I see a lot of new landlords making without any real intention is asking flat out illegal questions. And what I mean by that is a lot of new landlords aren't super familiar with the Fair Housing Act, which prevents any kind of housing discrimination, whether buying, selling, or even renting in any of the protected classes. These classes include race, skin color, sex, nationality, sexual orientation, which also includes gender, disability, or family status. These are the things that you cannot ask a prospective tenant to help you better understand whether or not you can accept their application to place them in your apartment or in one of your vacant units, because that is flat out illegal, and the federal government will come after you if the tenant decides to lodge a complaint with the appropriate municipality. Now, the third mistake that I see a lot of new landlords making is running it like a hobby, and I've been victim to this mistake as well. What I mean by that is any kind of property that you own that's for an investment purpose, whether it's a single family or a large apartment building or a shopping mall or a hotel, whatever it is, if you're approaching it like a hobby, you're not going to have the right systems in place to deal with issues that come up, right? So if you run it like a business, you'll have the right system in place, you're going to have the right employees in place to be able to manage any issues that come up from a tenant side or even from an operational side, right? So if you're running it like a hobby, you're probably going to be playing a lot of catch up. You're probably very scared of getting 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. phone calls from your tenants because you haven't managed the property properly, because you're neglecting it, because you're running it like a hobby, not a business. These are a lot of different factors that go into it, especially with new landlords. I see oftentimes you need a very big correction in assuming that the property is a business. It's not a hobby, and if you approach it like a business, you'll be able to put the right systems in place to understand that, as cruel as it sounds, you're not your tenants' friends. You're not there to give them super lenient about their situation. You're a business, you're providing a service, and they're a customer, and they're required to make payments to get the service that they're getting. Which leads me to the third mistake the fourth mistake that I see a lot of new landlords make is neglecting their tenants. Now, what I mean by that is at the end of the day, at the core, any investment property is a business, and your tenants are your responsibility, and more importantly, they're your customers. And any business that doesn't value its customers is not a business that's going to be around for too long, because customers will understand the value of the money that they're getting, right? So if you're neglecting tenants and you're not answering phone calls, or you don't have a system in place to address their issues, or doing sort of semi-regular check-ins while of course respecting their privacy, that's something that's not going to lead to a whole lot of success, especially if you try and scale your business and acquire more properties, because if you're having issues with a small multifamily or a single family property with a tenant that you've been too lenient with, or maybe you've just been super neglectant, then you're going to have the same issue multiplied by 100 when you start to acquire more properties. Now, the fifth mistake that I see a lot of new landlords making is underestimating their ongoing costs. For some reason, new landlords, including myself, seem to believe that when you buy a property, that's it. You don't have to do anything else with it. You don't have to worry about the roof, the basement, or any other ongoing expenses. That's just not the case. Anything that happens within the property is your responsibility, except if it's caused by tenant recklessness or anything that you put in the lease agreement, of course. So if there's like a basement issue, or if there's a roof issue and the roof is leaking after a snowstorm or a rainstorm, that's going to be your responsibility. So you have to take that into account. One of the common, I would say, line items that we say in real estate is called CapEx. That's about 5 to 10% of your ongoing monthly expenses that should be accounted for to go towards big ticket items, roof, basement repair, hot water tank, boiler, things like that. That's an ongoing cost that I see a lot of new landlords almost not accounting for, because you might think that, hey, well, if I'm buying a property that's already brand new, I don't really have a lot of ongoing expenses. It's just not the case, and you're going to learn soon enough, at least within the first couple of months, that a house has a lot of moving pieces, and you need to always be oiling every single moving piece to make sure that it runs smoothly, and doing regular service check-ins and maintenance and things like that. With that, guys, those were the 5 common mistakes I see a lot of new landlords making. I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like, drop a subscribe, or share this with any new clients that you might have, or any existing buddies of yours that are in real estate or thinking about getting in real estate. Stay tuned for the next video next week. I hope to see you guys then. For now, have a good week. Bye.